Okay, thank you for joining us again. Up next, we have Miya Howell. As Director of Sustainable Agriculture and Precision Farming at Bayer, Miya works with data science experts to coordinate global sustainable agriculture strategies. Prior to her role in supporting Bayer's sustainability, Miya contributed to the development of Bayer's strategy and vision for both the agricultural productivity, biologicals, and the biotechnology product portfolio. So please give a virtual hand for Miya.
Thank you very much, Tom, and thank you for inviting Bayer. I'm happy to represent Bayer to speak on this topic today, particularly as it relates to Bayer's ESG strategy and approach. And hopefully I'll be able to give the audience a flavor of what we're doing and then how that relates to what we're spending a lot of time on around the sustainability arena. So let me see if I can present, figure out this. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right. So Bayer ESG strategies. Today I'm going to speak specifically about how this work reflects in our work with farmers around reducing farmers' impact while also creating new businesses for the farmer and for Bayer. I'm going to go through a set of topics concerning ESG, why ESG is important for Bayer, and the evolution of the industry and how we've reacted. But then also specifically how it's embedded in our sustainability strategy. And so what I mean by this is really how does it fit with our goals around climate neutrality and our net zero targets, the work that we do with sustainable supply chains, as well as the work that we spend a significant amount of time on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to talk about how this impacts our Bayer's business as it relates to benefits, detriments, and considerations, and then specifically how Bayer's particularly leading this topic as it relates to transparency and engagement. So in line with our vision, health for all, hunger for none, we aim to put an end to hunger and help everyone lead a healthy life, while at the same time protecting ecosystems. And this is what we aspire to achieve. This is actually guided by our purpose and the central part of that circle for Science for a Better Life. As many of you know, Bayer is a life science company and a global leader in healthcare and nutrition, and our innovative products support efforts to overcome the major challenges presented by a growing and aging population. We help prevent, alleviate, and treat diseases, while at the same time we aim to ensure the world has a reliable supply of high-quality food, feed, and plant-based raw materials. And as part of this endeavor, the responsible use of natural resources is always a top priority. We aim to continuously enhance our company's earning power for creating value to customers, patients, shareholders, employees, and society. And as you can see in the bottom part of that wheel, we have specifically incorporated values around leadership, integrity, flexibility, and efficiency, or life, to lay the foundation for the way we operate. And these values shape our culture and ensure a common identity throughout the Bayer Corporation. So why is ESG important for Bayer? Before I get to that, just wanted to call out Bayer at a glance. We are made up of 3 divisions: crop science, pharmaceuticals, and consumer health. I myself am part of the crop science division, and we are primarily operating in 83 countries with over 100,000 employees globally. We bring in 50.7 billion euros in the last year, and operate specifically with a multi-billion-dollar budget. So now I'm going to get to why ESG is important for Bayer. And here we make a distinction between sustainability and ESG. And a lot of people tend to think of this as one and the same. Sustainability for us is really the strategy for sustainability is the large umbrella, and this encompasses the impact that Bayer has on economic, environmental, and a social perspective. Whereas the principles of sustainability focus on the 3 Ps, meaning people, profit, and planet, otherwise known as the triple bottom line, if you've ever heard of that. We are used to describe how we create and generate impact at Bayer using our sustainability narrative. ESG, however, provides the foundation for the data generation, the transparency, and the engagement that's focused mainly on the investment sector. And so ideally, a strong sustainability strategy will deliver wins for ESG, and they are very much linked and go hand in hand. So regarding ESG, this is really based on a lot of frameworks. For example, our sustainability reporting is aligned to additional standards like the Global Reporting Initiative, as well as the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact, or UNGC. And this allows investors a way to compare from industry to industry. In 2022, for example, our sustainability reporting is also aligned with additional requirements, things like sustainability accounting standards, as well as the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. And so ideally, the financial and then non-financial indicators really kind of help us measure our performance and risk mitigation. So sustainability itself is really about positive impact generation for Bayer. This is relevant for ESG. It's largely and highly becoming relevant for our investors. And through sustainability, we can identify business opportunities and identify risk for proper action, monitoring, and mitigation. And so at Bayer, we really focus primarily on two key stakeholders, as you can see on the left-hand slide, investors and our ESG rating agencies. Now, capital markets have a lot of interest with ESG and continues to grow, and their engagement is very important, or our engagement is very important with this group. It's a major focus right now is on sustainability targets like climate protection, product stewardship, biodiversity, crop protection, among others. And the focus there is really on risk avoidance. So prominent shareholders nowadays are saying that companies have the duty to report not only on investment decisions, but also on climate data, for example. It's no longer about the products, but it's also now tying into how products perform with respect to the environment. And investors are now believing that sustainability is a standard for investing. So ESG rating agencies are the second group of stakeholders that we primarily work with, and they are the main source of information for our investors. And this group is constantly growing and evolving, and today Bayer focuses primarily on three different groups of investors. But you can also see, in addition to investors and rating agencies, that there are other groups of importance for ESG. For example, ESG is important for customers in that 83% of Bayer's customers, or customers in general, really now think that companies should be shaping ESG progress. And socially responsible firms are known to have a better financial performance and easier access to capital. Regulators are also very important, and they're taking a big step on how requirements are done, and then also how regulators rate performance. And a good example of that is the EU Green Deal that we work very closely on. And topics like the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive is also getting very prominent in the EU and evolving fast. And a lot of what happens there will also impact what we do globally. The last area is employees. Reports show that ESG performance boosts productivity uplift by employees through attracting talent and social credibility. And so, as I mentioned, ESG is really evolving in the market. And when looking at global assets under professional management, ESG mandated investments are growing in the last decade and suggested to actually represent half of all managed assets by 2024. Why is that, you might ask? Most of them, yes, are interested socially, but this is also really due largely to those regulatory developments, as I mentioned, the EU Green Deal being one of them, where EU investment managers themselves are now required to disclose sustainability as a reason to invest. And so in order to do all of this and to meet our evolving stakeholders' needs, we're really leveraging digital transformation within the company to provide a path forward to adopt sustainability and then also to be able to communicate that. companies themselves, like Bayer, we will benefit because we have to ensure, in order to meet ESG and talk about our sustainability goals, all of this information is ensured by third parties to publish data. This enables us to be able to track and trace. It enables us to follow the evolution of this space. And then it also really helps as we strengthen our interactions with different rating agencies. So regarding corporate governance, we really kind of focus on a three-tiered structure to help the dialogue. This is fundamental for our sustainability management. And as you can see over on the left and the top, transparency and engagement is fundamental, but we've added a third tier here, which is very new for us and I think equally important. Transparency and engagement is fundamental, but compensation really makes our commitments that we're doing more tangible. And in order to do this and be transparent, we're acknowledging controversies and we disclose our risks and our mitigation strategies. So in terms of which topics Bayer's cover, these are most of them are very relevant for a sustainability equity story. And we cover topics specifically around things like biodiversity, genetically modified organisms, carbon farming, the UN Global Compact on performance of Bayer. And we have very high investor interest on these topics. The dynamics of the topics change every year, and so we typically as a company evaluate where we have opportunities to improve our transparency on things like our products, on specific controversies that come out, our own product development pipeline. And another great example is water, in which we recently just have disclosed at the UN Water Conference a few weeks ago. All communications that we do are done in a transparent way, and information that we communicate has to be assured by a third party, and this is really critical for trust. Now, the compensation piece, I did mention that it was important. This is based on our ESG, and a great example of this is our governance and compensation of the Board of Management is structured on ESG and really used to minimize the risk for our investors. A great example of how our governance is set up is over on the right-hand side of the slide, where our CEO is actually the Chief Sustainability Officer. Some companies may have their own sustainability officer. Well, in our case, our CEO is this. And this work is also largely promoting an ESG-based compensation. We also have an ESG committee on the supervisory board, which was recently established in 2022. We have various sustainability decision committees within the organization and really a broad group-wide policy framework. And so what's really unique is about this is that we additionally have that independent oversight in which we have a dedicated ESG committee. We have a sustainability council that was recently set up, as well as that external auditing. Now, the sustainability report we publish annually. We actually just released it at the end of February. You can actually click on the QR code or put your phone up to it to actually gain access, but this is largely our efforts really centered around sustainability and transparency. And the report focuses on disclosing our specific sustainability strategy, our advancements, and the descriptions of how we do part of our business of interest for our investors. All right, so there's a lot of information on this slide, and I'm going to walk through it pretty slowly. We have significant shares with shareholders from groups who are focused on the evolution of how companies work on carbon neutrality and net zero targets while cutting emissions and strengthening climate-related financial disclosures. So in order to do this Bayer needs to have proper engagement with stakeholders and rating agencies that take ESG into consideration. And this is an important part of our ESG strategy. Bayer, as many of you know, is known as an innovative company. We also want to be known as an impact generator for sustainability. And so what that means is we see sustainability as a new business opportunity to drive growth, where sustainability is now integrated within our business strategy, our operations, and our decision making. And we focus on both the financial and sustainability targets with the same rigor. So to put this in a more tangible way, this is actually what's supported under our motto, Health for All, Hunger for None, where we're strategically focused on sustainability, but then we're also making contributions to ensuring this vision becomes a reality. And so what's represented by the triangle really kind of summarizes our main targets and commitments within these three main pillars. Inclusive growth, really on that left-hand side, you see specifically our targets for people in 2030. This really kind of follows, we call it 100, 100, 100, where we really are at the point of supporting 100 million small farm holders in low and middle income countries, supporting 100 million people in underserved communities, as well as fulfilling the need of 100 million women in low to middle income countries with their needs for modern contraception. In addition to our 100 commitments around inclusive growth, we also have commitments around our reduced ecological footprint. And this is really where we enact our goals around reducing our environmental impact, not only in achieving climate neutrality within our sites, reducing emissions within our supply chain, but we also have our net zero emission reduction commitments for 2050 and reducing environmental impact through our crop protection products by 30% by 2030. And then lastly, that bottom triangle really represents how we act responsibly across the entire value chain. So you can see these challenges may not be on any framework for ESG in particular, but they form a large part of our sustainability strategy, which then we're compiling the data and information that goes into many of the reports we provide to our rating agencies. And what you see in the core is really the relevance of ESG to explain to the investors how our strategy and vision, Health for All, Hunger for None, is supported. Now, what you see over on the right-hand part of this slide really represents our commitments to sustainability development goals. And this is not new, but it's becoming more relevant as we get closer to 2030. What we've done is really supported a lot of what we do around sustainability to align, particularly with key goals as part of the SDGs, or Sustainability Development Goals, created by the UN. And here, much of our work focuses largely on 7 of them, primarily because we feel that we have a very strong contribution to those 7 specific goals. And we know as we get closer to 2030, there will be more interest from the investment community, particularly as it relates to those goals. So as I said, other targets from an environmental perspective follow the typical ESG framework. But we do spend a lot of time focusing, particularly with respect to the work we do in crop science, on that environmental footprint, greenhouse gas reductions, reducing environmental impact reduction with our crop protection products. We have recycling commitments. We're focused on net zero by 2050, and really spanning all scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas emissions across our business, and with our key stakeholders and suppliers. We work with the science-based targets primarily because we've made commitments to limit the global warming by a maximum of 1.5 degrees centigrade. And so because of this, we actually we have a goal to reduce our absolute emissions by 42% compared to our 2019 baseline. And this is really a way for us to speak and communicate to our ESG investors on how we view progress, Bayer's progress specifically on sustainability. So while I'm not going to focus on the 100 million challenges on the left side, I did want to dive in briefly on the reduced ecological footprint side of the triangle, primarily because that's where I spend a lot of time on. But some comments to really highlight here is that from an ESG perspective, we are very transparent in communicating the methodology, our disclosure, and then the assurance based on third-party auditing of our specific numbers. So our targets, this is one example of our specific greenhouse gas emissions targets. They remain unchanged, where we are focused on reaching climate neutrality in our own operations, which is really relevant to scope 1 and 2 by 2030. This also includes a switch of purchased energy to 100% renewables by 2029. While at the same time, we want to reduce our value chain emissions by 12.3%, and in addition, reduce the greenhouse gases on our field with our customers by 30% in key agricultural crops. And by 2050, we want to be a net zero company with net zero greenhouse gas emissions along our entire value chain. This is very ambitious. We currently have reduced our total greenhouse gas emissions, as you can see on the right, by 1.1 million tons, while still delivering business significant growth. With respect to scopes 1 and 2, and this is really kind of part of our own operations, we've already reduced our emissions by 4.4% compared to 2021 numbers. This is largely due to increasing our use of renewable electricity by purchasing of our total electricity. Additionally, we've offset 450,000 metric tons of our greenhouse gas emissions in 2022. Where our biggest challenges really kind of lies in our scope 3 emissions, and this is really based on the fact that tens of thousands of our direct suppliers need to reduce their emissions, and they're only responsible for a small fraction of the scope 3 emissions. The vast majority of the emissions is really on deeper supplier levels where we have no direct interaction. And so this is really a key challenge for us that we've kind of stepped up to the plate. Specifically so because even this year, our greenhouse gas emissions rose. And that's largely because of the businesses bouncing back after COVID-19. So I'm just going to touch on the fact that a significant portion of our sustainability efforts really center around our ag-related business. We consider greenhouse gas emissions reductions as well as other areas, including water, biodiversity, environmental impact protection, and this is really kind of where we have direct interactions with our growers, specifically in the crop science part of our company. This is a very important part of our business, primarily because we see ag as being a solution and not just a problem to our greenhouse gas emissions. So we're really kind of focused on taking sustainability to the next level within the company, as well as when we have direct interactions as we're developing new products. And so we're focused on transformational topics related to agriculture where we can really make a difference while keeping the farmer's perspective in mind. Our goal and our mission is really around linking our sustainability strategy. It's a core piece of our business. And in order to do that, we've defined specific KPIs to make all of our commitments measurable. And this is really kind of that link to our work and responsibilities on ESG. So to get a sense and scope of our direction of the holistic commitment to sustainability, these are two of our most important benchmarks that Bayer Crop Science specifically has committed to achieving. I had mentioned earlier both the climate-related one around reducing our in-field greenhouse gas emissions by 30%. That second one is really around reducing the environmental impact of our crop protection products by 30%. So in closing, 2022 was a year of progress on our journey towards our sustainability commitments. You can see that in our annual sustainability report. But what we've achieved so far has really only inspired us to continue to redouble our efforts as we see the opportunities and innovations that come from questioning businesses as usual. And so we and our customers are clearly seeing the benefits of sustainability management practices, the power of digital tools to support this effort, as well as the potential of our new products in our pipeline. We understand the need to put sustainability at the forefront, specifically as it relates to global food and agricultural systems. And we're putting that philosophy to practice within Bayer by institutionalizing the importance of sustainability, transparency, accounting, and collaboration with our stakeholders. So as we continue to advance towards those commitments, I'm very eager to see what new progress and innovations we'll be able to look back on in next year's report. And with that, I wanted to thank you again for listening and happy to close us out or take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mia. I think any questions from the audience, obviously we've got a networking break coming up, so feel free to reach out to Mia there. But I just have one quick question, if you don't mind. In terms of that scope 3 emissions you mentioned there, and obviously investors is kind of a key part of that. Are investors preoccupied by partner alignment with your sustainability goals, and how do you kind of manage that?
I will tell you that investors are more and more interested in those specific goals as it relates to our greenhouse gas emissions. Scope 3 is a beast, and it's one that we're really focused on as we continue to get more and more guidance, specifically as it relates to, in the case of crop science, which is where I sit, specifically as we're getting new guidance around our land sector guidance coming from greenhouse gas protocol, as well as our flag guidance within the SBTI. We're kind of working on this in parallel and working with specific guidance while all the rules still aren't being put into place. So depending on these guidances really depend on how much we can and should be reporting specifically on some of our scope 3 inventories, but we're really at the point where we're collecting a lot of data to ensure that we can assure the data that we support.
Fantastic. I do see some more questions popping through, but like I say, anyone wants to reach out to Mia in our networking session coming up, then please do. But thank you very much, Miya Howell.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to take our break now. As I said, now is time for you to network with other viewers on this session. So please enjoy, and we'll be back here in 15 minutes.